let us start with a reality every engineer and architect knows too well. Organizations now process more data in a single day than they did in an entire year just a decade ago. Even with this massive growth, or maybe because of that, many teams still can't answer foundational questions like where the data originates, who owns it, or how it flows through their landscape. Today's session goes straight into that gap, the visibility, lineage, and governance challenges that slow down real progress. If you're looking to turning fragmented data knowledge into something reliable and operational, you're just in the right place. Welcome everyone to today's live expert session. We are thrilled to have you join us. Today, I have the pleasure of having Gaurish Desai, Principal Enterprise Architect, and Jason Liu, also Principal Enterprise Architect, joining me. As a result-driven technology leader, Gaurish is passionate about leveraging innovation to solve complex business challenges and deliver business value. He brings cross-industry experience and has led key initiatives such as SAP S/4HANA migrations, M&A integrations, and digital transformation programs. Known for translating strategy into effective IT solutions, he works closely with the global stakeholders to drive impactful outcomes. Jason is an enterprise architect with over 19 years of experience focused on building future-proof data ecosystems that power AI. His core belief is that a solid data architecture is essential foundation for any successful AI strategy. He partners with leaders to translate complex business goals into scalable data strategies and modern platforms. Jason is passionate about driving data-driven transformation and unlocking measurable business value, sorry. So we also have the pleasure of having my colleague Malin Hall supporting us in the chat. And now let's dive in. Gaurish, please take it away.
Thank you, Tanya. I will start by sharing my screen, and then if you can give me a quick thumbs up that you can see my screen as well.
Yes.
Super. So today's session is titled Data Architecture Approach with LeanIX, and we're going to talk about a number of topics today, including showing you some live demos of what we have built so far on data architecture with LeanIX. So happy to kind of share, and we also have live Q&A as part of this session. So please feel free to drop in your questions. So when I am presenting, Jason will try to answer some of the questions together with Malin. And when Jason is presenting, I'll be in the background answering some of your questions. So please feel free to leave your questions in the live chat as well. Also, you will find the recording of the session on our SAP Community YouTube channel. So you can always go back to the recording and ask us questions there as well. Right. So with that, let's start with today's agenda. So we will do a quick recap of what SAP has announced during Sapphire as part of our data and AI strategy with Business AI platform. So this is where a number of existing solutions come together as a SAP Business AI platform, and we'll go into the details of that. Then we will have deep dive of different modeling guidelines for data architects. What are the next frontiers, including showing you how to use SAP LeanIX MCP server, how to kind of start playing around with it, how you can get access, and how we have been using that internally as well. That will be covered by Jason as part of his demo on data architecture modeling approaches, data product mapping, Claude Code with MCP, and then finally we will go into question and answers. I'm hoping that we'll have enough time for a very good Q&A, but we want to show you so many things and then make sure you kind of understand what the direction is, and hopefully it helps you in your architecture journey as well. So without further ado, let's maybe quickly introduce our Architecting Autonomous Enterprise webinar series as well. So this is the 13-part webinar series that we are also running from 1st of June to 20th of August. And that is going to talk about everything about autonomous enterprise, right from the vision and strategy, AI native architecture and how to build your own agents, data platform and industry AI, and finally closing with how architects can lead the autonomous enterprise journey. Right. So we are now at session 4, which will be happening on Friday, 26th of June. But if you have not signed up for it, you can still sign up. You will get access to all the existing recordings of the webinar series, all the slides, and you will be able to join all the future sessions as well. So both of them are possible for you, right? So I would highly recommend registering for the session, and you can join in this journey as well. Right. So some of you who might have been at Sapphire or already attended some of the sessions of Sapphire Virtual might know that SAP has launched the SAP Business AI platform as part of this year's Sapphire launch. Right. What does SAP Business AI platform look like? It consists of three key important pillars. So first is the SAP Build, which is Joule Studio and Integration Suite, which provides you the platform for building your own agents. Then you have the middle pillar, which is the contextualize and reason, which is everything around the context, the data, and the reasoning with that data. So that brings together SAP Knowledge Graph, SAP Business Data Cloud, SAP and non-SAP models that we are providing as part of the AI Core Foundations, and also the partnerships that we have launched with number of hyperscalers as well as other data companies. And then finally, the govern pillar, which has everything to do with managing your AI landscape today and managing your agentic landscape as well. So that includes SAP Agent Hub, Joule Studio Runtime, and Identity and Access Security. So that is where you can govern your entire AI landscape, right? So that's the whole entire business AI platform capabilities. But when we are talking about data, we are more focused on SAP Business Data Cloud as your main platform for enterprise data. So this includes, of course, Joule as the engagement layer for the business data cloud, where you can build Joule agents for business data cloud as well as for other applications across your SAP stack. And then you also have intelligent content, which you might have heard was called intelligent apps as well, right? So that is your dashboard analytic capabilities, which also have Joule infused in that. The next layer is the knowledge core, which is which made up of two things. So one is SAP DataSphere, which allows you to have the modeling capabilities, the data pipelines, and governance. And then you have the SAP Analytics Cloud, which also allows you to do traditional analytics and agentic AI capabilities to work with your data, including Joule interface. Right. And then you have the intelligent compute, which is made up of HANA Cloud, Databricks, and Snowflake partnership, all working on the HANA data lake file system capabilities, right? So this is how we kind of unpeel the business data cloud capabilities. And then I just wanted to bring a new kind of angle to this. So we wanted to share with you also the data product generator. You might have heard the SAP strategy with data products for quite some time, but we also always get this question of how can we build our own data products? And we have kind of two aspects of it. We have the Data Product Studio and also the Joule Studio, which would allow you to build data products in an agentic format, right? So which is from intent to development of data products. And I wanted to share with you the second part of it, which is data product creation agent using Joule Studio as part of today's session, right? So what it allows you to do is it allows you to discover existing data products and then based on that create new data products. So if some of you are already aware of how SAP defines data products, you might have seen that SAP data products are made up of three different things. So the data itself coming from the source systems, the metadata that supports the data, and then the API endpoint for consumption, right? So think of any data product of having three key ingredients: the data itself, the metadata, and the API endpoint. And that is what the Joule Studio data product builder agent would allow you to do. Right. And what's the value over here? So the biggest value is you don't have to be a expert at modeling your own data. The Joule Studio, and we will see this in the demo as well, it starts with your intent and allows you to build the data product with normal the conversational capabilities, right? So it allows you to understand your existing data products faster, and then leverages the graphical interface to help you build a data product, right? And we will see how to do that in a second. So basically you can start with a prompt saying, hey, I want to understand which data products I have access to, and then based on that, create custom data products with existing data products. Okay, so this is scheduled to be released for Q4 2026, and then we'll see a quick demo of that capability as well. I will walk you through the demo, what it is doing, and then if you have any questions, feel free to raise them in the comment section as well. Right here, you can see that we have given a simple prompt to identify to create a data product, and then this is what we call an intent. Right. So based on this intent, the skill for data product generation has been activated in the background, and then Joule Studio automatically understands how the different formations are built in the backend. So based on this, it's looking at the formation and it's pulling together the different data products, primary data products that you already have in your backend formations, or the backend systems which are connected in the formations, right? And based on this, you can see over here, there is sales order, billing document, and all the other different data products that are part of your formation available to you. And then it actually proposes how you can create your custom data products as well. So it proposes over here data product properties, which includes the technical properties over here, so order to cash foundation, and then a short description and everything that you need to start building the data product. With that, then it starts creating in the backend, and you can continue to use the conversational panel on the right hand side to start prompting and building your data product as you go. In this screen over here on the left, that is where you will see the details of data product. And also on the top, just a second, sorry. Yeah. Also on the top over here, you will see how the intent driven development lifecycle looks like from intent to deployment, right? And then let's go into the details. You can still see that it is generating the aggregated CDS views, and it's giving you a detailed explanation of how the CDS model is evolving, right? So it's building an aggregated CDS model containing 4 entities across 2 data products. That includes entity that is sales order item, billing document, and billing document item. Right? Then it goes into the details over here. Once you are approving this data product for creation, it will start applying the transformations. So it will look at the sales order, billing document, CDS views, and then aggregating that to create the data product, as you will see in a second. Right? And then it also has an exit gate. That means it self-checks the build process and make sure that everything is okay. And based on that, then it will start generating your graphical views on the left-hand side. Currently, you will see no object, but as soon as you expand the object which is created, you will see over here all the 4 entities, as well as then a newly created custom data product that is available to you. Right here, you can then see the details of the custom data product over here, and it will show you all the information that you need to know about that data product. So what has it created? What's the header? What are the different dimensions available? What are the key measures? For example, confirmed delivery date, confirmed delivery quantity, And then it also gives you can also generate more documentation based on prompts over here, and you can also retrieve the existing data from the data products and show you the preview of how that would look like in the custom data product, right? So it aggregates the data automatically and it shows you over here the data preview, and you can say, hey, give me the first 10 rows or first 20 rows and so on, and it will give you the preview of the data, aggregated data in the custom data product, right? So you can imagine how much time you could save by doing this using Joule Studio instead of having to do the modeling on your own in a manual way. And then finally, the data product is published. And that data product, once it is published, it is calling the BDC MCP server to make it available in SAP BDC, which will sit in the data sphere side of things, right? So it successfully created it and published it, and then it will make it available for you to consume in analytics model, or you can use Delta Share to share it with any third-party data platforms as well, right? So with that, I hand it over to you, Jason, to continue the conversation on how you can use LeanIX then to architect your landscape further, both from an enterprise architecture and from a data architecture point of view. Over to you,
Awesome.
Jason.
Thank you, Goresh. I might just take over the screen because later will
Yes,
be the
please.
exciting of demos. So it might be easier that way. Now, let me quickly share my screen and then let's continue that conversation, right? So Goresh has shown us the visions, the future strategy, right? So now how do we make that a reality, right? So this is the so-called strategy to execution. The data architect need to collaborate quite closely and very closely with enterprise architect in order to make that the AI dream comes true, right? And hit that realities. So how does that work, right? In three different pillars. So contextualizing the data, right? Using LeanIX, basically we are moving away to try to identify or answer the question that what data do we have to, how can we leverage our data, or why does it matter, right? From an enterprise and organizational point of view. From the EA to DA bridge, basically that the EA, kind of map out that strategic business capability, right? The visions. For example, the customer 360 as one of the example, right? As a DA, as a data architect, you map out the underlying data objects and relationship between them and identify what data product do we need. Moving along, the second pillar around the operationalizing the data, right? So basically, we are now moving away from the traditional data as always a byproduct to a data as our strategic product, right? Like that's so important these days. Everyone is talking about this business context. From EA to DA bridge, right? EA manage the inventory of the application, the interfaces at a higher level, whereas DA goes in and then to map out the more detailed relationship between them. Later in the demo, we will show that how DA and EA plays important part in this pillar there. Lastly, it's around the democratization of the architecture, right? We are now transition away from the static blueprint or the artifacts. In the olden days, we are using PowerPoints, visuals, stored on the SharePoint, but now it's no more, right? We are using this single workspace that everyone sees it. Everyone can slice and dice to different architectural point of view per se. Single source of truth, that's so important, right? What you see is what you get at the end. And in addition to that, in LeanIX, you might aware there's a quality seal, right? Make sure that, the person that responsible for the fact sheet always go back and check and validate it's up to date and it's accurate. Now, how does the DA kind of model the architectural patterns or the important artifacts inside the LeanIX, right? So one approach is, you can see here, it's a very business capability or business architecture centric. Basically, that what you do is starting from your business capability. What's the current business capability and what's the missing ones that you will want to introduce, right? From there, you map out the relationship and identify what are the potential applications that's going to support it. So then once you have that relationship built, you probably want to embark on an initiative, potentially an idea, potentially a project out of that. So that's the relationship between capability, application, initiative. In addition, if you identify a certain business process that's also empowers or related to the capability, you can also map it out here. The picture that you see on the right there is the 12 standard LeanIX fact sheet types. For some of you that if you want to know more, please put your comments below. We might run another dedicated session around the LeanIX fact sheet types and how do we map out the relationship between them. Now, moving along, in addition to the business point of view, we can also have a look at using an application point of view, right? Or a solution point of view. In this particular modeling approach, what would the starting point potentially would be an application. You probably identified a potential applications that fit perfectly, both technically and functionally in your organization. So then you identify that application. From there, you do the same exercise again. You find the relationship between the application and then the business capability. One pattern that you might already seen is that it's always an IT and business linkage. We cannot do one or the other by itself, right? So now we link or map out the relationship between the application and business capability. We can continue expand that relationship. For example, that you can see from the diagram, what you can do is from application, you can identify potential data objects, also called the data products, right? And also what are the outbound interfaces that a particular application will support. And how does one organization uses those applications, right? So then this is a very application-centric point of view. Now, all in all, there are third approach, right, which is strictly looking at the data objects or the so-called data products. So basically that some organization, you are well mature in terms of your current data architectural patterns or implementations. So you might want to explore a lot more around what data product do I have? What custom data product that I need to build in the near future, right? So with this modeling approach that you start with the data product, right? Of course, data product cannot just automatically, created by itself. It's associated or it's created by an applications. So then from there that you build out your data product mapping. So this is kind of the three different approaches that a data architect usually, take. Just to quickly recap, from a business capability point of view, from an application point of view, or from a data product or data object point of view. Now, having said that, in the title or in this webinar, we also need to cover the very interesting topic, right? AI is everywhere, and MCP server is also available for those who have the LeanIX workspace, right? So you can connect the MCP server of your choice or using your IDE of your choice. Later, I will do a demo using my Visual Studio Code to showcase this. How does this work? And what's the benefit out of this, right? It's basically that you can use any human language typing or prompting to prompt and interact with your AIs. And in addition to that, right, it's the underlying LLM models of your choice. Later, I will use the cloud code, but then you can also use the other IDEs such as Goose or Codex, for example, right? So that's also available, and later I will do a quick demo around that. But having said that, there are some prerequisites for connecting, and I will showcase to you now before the demo, right? So basically that you will need to have the administration right in your workspace. And this leading towards an important topic, right? We need to be very mindful when we connecting via the MCP server, because you do have the administration right. You can do a lot more activities or interactions with your fact sheet types. So basically that this is a high level configuration steps. Later, I will go through parts of it. I will not go through all of it. At the end of this webinar, that you will also get the slide deck. You can go through the links. Our colleague, Renee Daniel, he did a fantastic job on several webinars as well. So those are the links that you can refer to and then follow step by step. On that, I think this is the interesting part. It's the real system demo. Fingers crossed my demo got placed well with me. Cool. Now, let's have a look at this, right? So as some of you might familiar with this view, it's basically is an inventory view of LeanIX, right? You might see that you will have a different number of fact sheets available compared with yours and mine because it's on purpose, right? LeanIX is agile, it's dynamic, it's tailored to your stakeholder, to your organization. First thing first, if you log in here, you see nothing or the 0 entries, don't be alarmed, right? So there are approaches that we can embark on. Like I mentioned, first we can go through this so-called business capability approach. So what you do is you go down to more reference catalog, you go and explore the business capability. And these are the standard so-called business RBA, right? Reference business architecture capability that's available. Sorry about the color because I've already import all, so that's why you see this dark blue. But the first time you enter this, you will see a white background, right? Depends on your organization, your initiative, or the requirements. You can leverage the filter bar right on top. For example, that you identified a certain business process that you have interest to. For example, finance or idea to market, and then you can apply additional filters onto it. Once you apply the filters, it reduces number of business capability related to the business process. So this is very useful if you want to narrow down or home in to a certain business process. Now, you can also, if you identify a certain SAP application, you can also go through this, filtering process. For example, that I probably have Ariba, right? Say category management. I can apply the filter here. It shows me the business capabilities that it produced. So this is a business starting point for you to import the business capability into your worksheets. For some of you might probably ask, right? So business capability is good, but I don't know what's the relationship or what SAP solution or products that's empowers it or supports it. Here you will see a little button. If you switch that on, it basically would also tell you what are the SAP suggested solution. So this, then what you can do is you can pick and choose. And if you do this import, you will import the business capability as well as the solution components within that as well. So now this is a business capability centric point of view. I will leave for now. So remember just now, the second approach, it's more around application centric. In LeanIX, the beauty of it is you can leverage the diagrams. So in here that you will see, by default, you see all the diagrams. If you navigate down over here, you will see this BTP reference architecture. So if you clicked into it, you will see a set of reference templates for you to have this quick start or quick approach. The beauty of this is you can quickly just use it, and then from there you can create your fact sheets. For example, just to do one simple example, it's, for example, if I want to use this federated machine learning with data sphere. So I open it up, it will load the underlying draw diagrams. Then I simply just say, use the templates. Then it translates itself to a free draw diagram. For some of you quite familiar with this tool, Draw.io or the diagram.net, this is basically, it's the same, right? So the idea of here is, right, you like this particular architectural patterns, probably you don't need certain part of it, so you can feel free, you can just delete it, you can remove it at your will. Now, we're talking about application, right? For example, that I identified a BW4 HANA. Two options I can do, right? I can do a right click onto it. I can either create a new fact sheet as an application, or I can link it to an existing fact sheet, because I know in this workspace, I already have an application called BW4 HANA. So what I can do is I can link it, right? So straight away it says, okay, I see that in your workspace, you do have a BW4. So then all I need to do is just link it and it is available, right? So you see that it's been linked to the application before. And that's that simple, right? So using the templates, identify the use case patterns, and then either create a new or you build your link to your existing, right? Now, if I want to create new, what do I do, right? So I'll just quickly do an example over here. For example, that if I want to create a new fact sheet, I just hover across, create applications. Then basically that what you will do, it will ask me for an update. Basically, it's a checkpoint, right, for safety precaution. So if you open up that updates, you will say, hey, do you want to create an AI core? I know this might not be an application as such, but for demo purpose, that I would do that, right? So then what it does is if I hit that apply update, it will create that AI core for me because it's the action of that. So let's go with that, right? And then see what happens. So behind the scenes that it created the fact sheet type, fact sheet for me already, right? So later we can check if it does happen, right? Cool. So this is using the BTP reference architectural patterns. What happens if we don't have any, desired architectural patterns out of this, selection of patterns, right? The other thing we can do is we can hop onto the SAP Architectural Center, right? Hopefully by now, all the architect out there knows that SAP also have an architectural center with a collection of the reference architectural patterns. Stay on the data and analytics topic that I want to, browse through what are the available BDC related reference architectural patterns, right? For example, that, okay, I probably like these high level architecture diagrams. I want to use it. So what do I do, right? I can quickly go into the edit mode. This turns itself into a draw or the .NET, sorry for my dark background. I'm not gonna switch across, but basically that what you can do is you can do a Control A, basically select all the artifacts over there, hover back to your diagram, and then you create new diagrams. So you say create new, create a free draw diagram, and then give it a meaningful name. What else can be more meaningful than YouTube demo, right? So a YouTube demo, you save that diagram, and you will show up as a blank screen. But don't be alarmed. All you need to do is a good old Control C, Control V, right? So I've just hit Control V, and it just simply copied that entire reference over, right? It's that simple. Then you embark on the journey again, right? Look at, oh, potentially I need to create a data sphere. Basically, right click on the fact sheet, either you link it or you create new. So that's simple, right? I'm pretty sure that's simple. Now, so that's two options for us as an architect to quickly start from a more architectural or diagram approach to get our inventory up and running. Now, continue on the demo. The next thing that I would like to talk to you is a scenario, right? One of the scenario that we usually see, it's basically that in the LeanIX workspace, they already have some of the inventories or have some of this architectural decision or visions being captured from our EAs. As a DA, when you get deployed into the project or the program of work, we need to do our due diligence, right? So basically in this scenario, what we mapped out for you, it's basically that following through this TOGAF ADM, right? Or if you are not using TOGAF, you can use in a different methods or a different framework. But the idea is you can see what you are seeing here is a LeanIX dashboard. So you can link, you can map as you desire, right? And everyone will see the same messages over here. So in this particular scenario, it's basically that as a DA, I will need to go in there and validate each phases, make sure the artifacts or the information is correct. And if anything that's missing, I potentially will need to collaborate with my enterprise architect or relevant stakeholder and make sure that it is addressed. So for example, in this one, this dashboard, you can also see this reference data architecture from a very SAP BDC centric and BDC point of view, right? Here that you will see the three layers, but addition to that, as a LeanIX user, as a data architect, you can introduce additional fact sheets. For example, that we can build additional application fact sheet. You can click into it. This will bring you to your inventory. Remember just now I showed you in the diagram how I linked it to one of my inventory item. This is how exactly that we map it over here. Just to stay on this, just for data architect, we are quite interested and we are heavily, kind of working around this particular fact sheet type called applications. Why? Because we need to capture the important information. For example, that you can see the entire life cycle. You need to make sure that whether this application's life cycle is still in a healthy state. Later in the example, I will show you, for example, that SAP BW on-premise are approaching end of mainstream maintenance in 2030, around that mark. So then we need to capture it. Why? Because we need to keep an eye on it. Later, when we do the entire application portfolio assessment, this becomes super critical. Now, scrolling down or moving along, later I will come back to this relationship explorer, right? When you have not yet established any relationship, this should be very boring, right? You potentially only seeing just one application over here. How do we make this relationship working? It's if you continue to scroll down, you can define this parent-child relationship. Because we all know SAP BDC is an umbrella terms. Underneath it, you got various different components. For example, you've got your data sphere, your SAP Analytics Cloud, your SAP Databricks. That is a perfect parent-child relationship, and you can build that relationship. Continue to move along. These are some of the portfolio assessment strategy. And hopefully that we all know by now the time classification and 6R, right? Worth to note that time classification, it's not an SAP nor LeanIX, right? It's coming from the Gartners. So what does that mean, right? So that means that we basically identified whether this particular application should we continue to tolerate, meaning, continue to pay the ongoing maintenance fees, license fee, or we should invest in that, right? We need additional feature out of this application and we need to buy a lot more. Or we decided to migrate that across. If that's an upgrade, we potentially, or a different re-platform, we can do this migration. Or we should completely eliminate. Potentially there was just one person from your organization is still using it and the business value or the functional fit, it's minimum. So you can start to look into eliminate them. So that's the time classifications. Moving along, you've got this 6R classification or an approach. This is coming from the AWS, right? So what are the 6Rs, right? I'm not going to go into the detail, but as you can see, you've got various different options or the classification you can allocate to this particular application, right? Rehost, re-architect, re-platform as such. And all these are not just you as a data architect, you decided what to do, right? It's basically you need to have that conversation with your relevant stakeholder, whether it's coming from a business domain or an IT domain. Now, continue to move along that you will also have that conversation around this so-called the business criticality and functional fit, right? If this particular application is business critical, to eliminate this might not be a wise idea, right? So does the functional fit. And these are all just to showcase you some of the options that you can have. Now, talking about the functional fit, right? This is through either surveys or interview with relevant users to identify whether it's appropriate, insufficient, or unreasonable, right? So this is where you capture kind of the business pain point, right? Too slow, not responsive, so on and so forth. Now, continue to move along. And as you can see, these are a lot of attributes that you can use, right? One point to make is, you don't have to go through each item by item. I would say the good modeling practice is you start with something that's small and easy to approach. What does that mean? It's you don't have to do what exactly I demonstrated here, right? Because this is quite extensive. If I continue to scroll, you'll see there are a lot more kind of the attributes or the content I captured. You can start with something small to begin with. And as you start to build your report, later I will show you, you will start to identify what are the additional attribute or conversation you need to have with your relevant stakeholder. Now, coming back to that, right? Once you've mapped out all the necessary attribute, you will see this relationship explorer. So the idea of this is basically, let me move that across. So the idea of this has become kind of your mind map, right? Or your, single source. I can start navigating this. For example, when I do SAP DataSphere, I know my parent is BDC, but I want to know more around BDC, right? So what's available in BDC? Now you see that just now I mentioned a quick fact check. These are the 4 components of the BDC with the BW as an optional, right? So then you can start to navigate across and understand from a holistic point of view what your enterprise, what does your stakeholder, your organization have, and what are the capabilities it supports. So moving back to the example I showed you earlier, it's then we continue to this information and system applications, right? So what it does, it's now we are looking at 2 components. In this phase C of the ADM, we are splitting between a data architecture point of view and application point of view. The data architecture point of view, like I mentioned earlier, it's all around the data products. The applications, it's all around the existing applications. Then continue that you will be able to see, what's your desired target state, right, via a diagram. And also when you start to traveling, that potentially your platform experts or your users will start asking you that, hey, what's the available data center for my BDC? Right. So in this world map, you can quickly map out the available data centers, right? In Australia, Frankfurt, Zurich, and all that. And then you can quickly, one single view, you can see all the available data center that's there. Now, coming back, and I know there are a lot of topic to cover. This is another scenario, right? It's around the BW modernization. I will quickly go through that. Audience, if any content or any topics that you think worth for us to run another webinar, please do leave your comments below, and we will check the comments and potentially we will run another more in-depth webinars later on this year. Now, coming back, this is a BW modernization scenario, right? So this is a typical scenario for the BW customer. What we do is we look at the application portfolio assessment. What this particular report shows you is from a technical capability point of view, what are the solution that's fulfilling that, right? So to give you that one page view of that. Continue to move along. What are we doing with our BW, right? This is basically looking at from the time classification I showed you earlier. So this is when, for example, you want to build this time classification and you realize that the entries or the attributes is not being populated. This is the time you go back to your application fact sheets, having the conversation or do the survey with relevant stakeholder or users, and then come up with this time classification. Then you can build this map. This is where I say, when you start to build your report, you will start capturing more and more information and relevant attributes across. So a common question would be, from BW to my BDC, what do I get in addition to that, right? So in here, you'll see a quick overview of if you migrate or transition to BDC, these are the additional capabilities, and this is a functional fit point of view, right? Moving along, that's the application roadmap, and this is what I mentioned earlier, right? In here, in the BW application fact sheet, the life cycle become important because that we've mapped it to end of mainstream maintenance as end of December 2030. So in here, you can quickly see that, in this graphical format, it's approaching end of maintenance. So what does that mean from an organization or from an enterprise vision's point of view? Is basically we need to do something now, right? Because not everyone is a Thanos, right? With a flick of the fingers and everything gone live next day. So this give us a kind of a conversation starter. As a data architect, you can take this to the relevant stakeholder and show them this. This is fast approaching. We need to do something now, right? So also in addition to that, some of the features and function that a data architect also can do is, we all know there are several SAP nodes or several information that's critical and that can facilitate you to have that conversation. In here that you can also map, right? So this is an external link, brings you to the SAP nodes. Also that if you have a lot of references, whether it's internal or external, you can also use this dashboard to map it out. For example, what I did here, it's all the external outward-facing materials, right? For example, the architecture center I just show you, the free BDC assessment that's available, the help portals that's available, and certification and so on, right? So these are also another technique as an DA you can use or you can leverage within the LeanIX workspace. Now, staying on the application side of the things, I want to show you one diagram I think is worth mention. It's this, the current state and then the future state point of view. So with this diagram, and this is all standard LeanIX diagram, it's basically, as a data architect, what you want to see is what's your current state. And when I read this, it's basically the BW application as of today provide me with all this business capability or technical capability per se. Now, we all know that as we kind of embark on this transition, we want to introduce or we want to migrate it across to the BDC PCE version of it. So what does that mean, right? So then as part of the transition, your BW will get eliminated. You will introduce your BW for HANA PCE version. Then at the target state, finally, you will see that the BW is gone, right? It's no more. But your BW for HANA in PCE, it's introducing additional technical capability. In addition to that, it also, kind of retain your, current capability with some that may be missing. And this might be another exercise for data architect to kind of deep dive a deep further to see, whether the data preparation, it's part of this, data workspace management capability. So then this gives you that one single diagram to show you what you have today, what you have in the future. So that's also, kind of another useful, tools we can use. Now, last but not least, before the MCP topic, it's around the inventory of the, I'm going to show you the data product view. So bear with me while I load up that dashboard. So now remember the third modeling approach or the guideline, it's talking around from a data product centric point of view. Again, the idea of this particular approach is we want to mirror the information that's available from the SAP Business Accelerator Hub. So before I dive in a bit deeper onto this, just quickly show you for the audience on the call, if you want to find out more around the BDC data product, the Business Accelerator Hub is the go-to place. You navigate around to the data product tab, then you will see that 312 data product that's available. For example, I want to check out my cash flow data product. In here, that you will show me all the relevant attributes and the detailed information around the cash flow once it loads up, right? So it gives you a quick introduction. It gives you all this business semantic text. It also gives you the version when it was last updated. Also provide you with this API, right? The API endpoint or the OData endpoint. In addition, it also gives you this business objects relationship, right? And sometimes it is like Alice in the Wonderland, right? When you start clicking, navigating, you will easily get lost. So the idea that me and my team was doing is to show you this single viewpoint with all the relationship that map out from based on the Business Accelerator Hub, which is a public available information, right? So we start with the data product as a center, and we model it as a subtype of the data object fact sheets. So as you can see, that's the center. We start to venture out to identify what are the interfaces. And we don't just create interfaces just, as we wish. We basically take what's available from the Business Accelerator Hub. If I can show you one of these, then you will know what I'm talking about, right? So once I click into that fact sheet, it basically brings me to the LeanIX inventory. Now, you will see that exactly information that's captured from the Business Accelerator Hub, right? So this is important. That means that, we don't need to go and switch back and forth between Business Accelerator Hub and LeanIX. In this particular workspace, we see everything. So does the so-called data product as well. So then we map out this relationship. We also, in addition, we kind of map the data product producer and consumer. It is important for us to know which application that curated or produced that data product, which is the one that we consume it, so we get that holistic picture, right? From the data product, remember just now we saw that the whole business semantic, right, around the business process. And we also map that out via the business context fact sheets. In addition to that, the business object is also mentioned, which links to the business capability. Now, from here that we see the holistic picture from data product to application to the business process to the business capability. And of course, from there, you potentially will, extend that relationship to potentially an initiative or an objective if your organization adopts that. So this is one view approach or methods that we map out the data product to be leveraged by the data architects. The second method we also want to see, and this is a bug, and I know how to fix it, is you need to switch tabs in order for this to load. Right, and this is just to show you this is a real life demo. Now, coming back and continue on that whole data product topics, right? We also want to know what are the data capabilities the data product provides, right? So remember, we need to always bridge the IT and business together. So this gives us that view of the relationship between the data product and the business capability. Now, next one you will not see because this is around the intelligent content, or so-called the intelligent application. For some of you might be familiar with that name. So the reason I'm not showing this is because there is a commercial implication, right? Meaning that unless you purchase or you buy the intelligent content, you will not be able to know what are the data products that's associated with it. So that's why I kind of purposely leave it as a blank. But for you, you basically map out this relationship I show you from the top here. So for example, the working capital insights as a data package or a data content, intelligent content, you map it out to the relevant data products that's available. So you build this relationship yourself, then you will see that holistic view of what's underneath the working capital insights. Now, quickly go through the next two before I show you the MCP. So the following two is basically simple, right? Just now I show you that what are the data producers, what are the data consumers. But in addition to that, what's more important as a data architect, we need to be very mindful of the data governance or the data security. So here it's a view of the data classification. In here that we can kind of, this is the attribute of the data classification. We need to identify what are the sensitive data products that, the organization or the business user can consume. What are the confidential ones that we need to tighten up on the security or we need to be mindful, right? In this workspace, we've just show you or just, to give you a bit of glance of, this saying candidate information from SuccessFactors, it's super confidential, right? It's a personal data. So that's why we mark it as confidential. But then you go through this entire exercise to identify which data product map to which data classification. Same with the producer, right? So data producer is the same approach to go through this. And again, LeanIX, it's fully tailored, fully customizable. It really tailored to what you need. Now, with 4 minutes in mark, and I'm running super duper late, super sorry about that. It's the last big topic around the MCP. Now, let's talk about the MCP. So in order for you to, kind of initiate or configure the MCP, right? First, you need to have the administration right. So you go into this administration panel. If you quickly scroll down, you will see an integration, which is over here. Then here you will see the MCP, right? You click onto this and you have a choice of you want to use which authentication methods, right? User-based or auth authentication. This is highly recommended because every time you kind of connect to that MCP server, it prompts you for your user ID and potentially your workspace as well. So this is highly recommended. The other method is token-based, right? Which is on a technical user level. So you can do what I do here, like you can activate both, but highly recommended to go down that OAuth path. So step number one, get this up and running. The next thing is you create this. If you go down the technical user part, you have to do additional step. It's set up this technical user. Now, basically that what you do is fairly simple, right? You create a technical user. This user, it's YouTuber. How about that? So the user is called YouTuber, it's called the administration rights, and you give the expiry dates. For example, because it's a demo, I'm just gonna say end of this month, and this user will no longer be valid, right? So you save it. You will see this access token, and this is where it's super important because you will only see this screen once, potentially. Unless you regen, but regen will be a new token, right? So this is the token if you want to use a technical user to connect to your LeanIX workspace. Copy and paste this, secure it in your safe, lock it with double lock because whoever that has this access token will be able to access your workspace. And you're probably asking the question that why am I showing this? It's because I will delete this user after the demo. So then you will not be able to, kind of connect to my workspace. But this is kind of the config steps. Like I mentioned earlier, later in the deck, there are a couple of links, especially Renee's demo. It is super useful. Now, let me quickly just show you what it looks like. I've prepped for it. So I'm using the VS Code to connect to it. So the idea is you can ask the human natural language, right? What are the cash flow data product available? So basically behind the scene, it goes and search, your inventory. And this is where it start hooking up or identified my intent is to find the data product. So it goes to the inventory skill or the tool. If it does, Then you will basically prompt me or come back with the relevant information. Knew this is gonna happen, so I prepare. Oh, it's thinking, because I've worked my clock really hard today, so maybe it's getting a bit tired. But moving along, for example, that just now I prompt what are some of the architectural decision we have, meaning that in this particular workspace, what architectural decision we have. It goes in and come back with two architectural decisions, right? And this, how do I validate whether it's true or not? Basically, that we can navigate to the LeanIX workspace. Let's go to the architectural decision over here. So now it shows me two, right? ADR1, ADR2, and then the relevant information. Quickly switch back just to make sure that my MCP is giving me the correct answers, right? So it does give me the correct answers and the correct context. The beauty of this, if you look at that, it's even so thoughtful that provide a link for me. So if I click into this link, this will bring me to, oh, this is my other browser. But this will brings me to the ADR one, which is this particular ones over here. So that's the one of the kind of the methods, right? So although I only have to imagine in your inventory, you have got thousands. And then remember that whole relationship between the fact sheet types. For individual to go through it, to identify it and throw through it will be time consuming, right? With the help of MCP, it will be a lot easier, right? It's basically conversational based. And then you leave the hard works to the AI. The other thing I also found out from Renee's demo is if you are using Goose, which is another IDE, it actually brings you a very LeanIX look and feel. If everyone is requesting, we potentially will do another webinar series on that. But just to quickly wrap up and sum up, right? So now it comes back, tell me the cash flow or the metadata that's available in my workspace. So that's some of the use case that's kind of you can use. On that note, I need to quickly do a shout out. For those who are more interested and want to hear or know more around this autonomous enterprise, especially from an architect's lens point of view, right? Please highly encourage, do sign up, scan the QR code or register online. For some of the time zones, it might not be good for you, especially in Asia. But don't worry, sign up and you will get after the webinar, you will get the link on demand. You will get the deck as well, right? So you still can access the assets afterwards. So highly encourage. We are running this from running it from the 1st of June to the 20th of August this year. So do encourage to sign up. And last but not least, thank you. Any questions? And I'm so sorry I'm running.
No problem. But perhaps you want to unshare?
Okay.
So we are at full screen. First of all, Garish and Jason, thank you so much for your excellent and really insightful walkthrough. Apart from actual suggestions to follow up webinars, it looks that everything was explained so clearly that we do not have any questions in the chat right now. But for everyone today who's in there live or watching the video afterwards, if you have questions, experiences, or opinions from your own projects, leave them in the comments. We would love to hear how others are approaching these scenarios and will answer any topic-related questions you have. So we are over the hour, and no problem, Jason. It was really awesome, your presentation. And with this, I would like to thank everyone for joining. Again, Garish and Jason, thank you for your excellent presentation and a great day, a great evening, depending on where you are. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Stay safe.
Thanks, Tanya. Thanks for organizing.
Yeah.